all of these issues coming to the fore again now. I mean, if we can start off on Italy as well, the bank fix is a placebo, according to you. Just flesh out your thoughts a little bit.
Well, the thoughts are very simple. Monte Paschi is certainly the worst bank of the Italians, and therefore the worst bank in Europe. It's closely followed by two of my own Irish banks, of course. But the whole Italian banking system needs 80 billion, nice round figure of euros. And this is going to be 5-6 billion. So it's that proportion of the problem. And until you address the whole problem, which is, I'm afraid, a massive recapitalization, 6, 7, 8% of GDP, in Italy, you're not going to address the problem. And to address the problem, you have to write down the loans. And of course, that's one side of the balance sheet. Then you have to say, who are the poor suckers on the other side of the balance sheet who are going to get hit? And of course, you end up by saying that all these banks sold their own bonds to their own depositors on a very, very doubtful platform. And if you actually then haircut the depositors, who are now the bondholders, so you haircut the bonds, then Renzi loses the referendum, which is why it's not happening. It's all being put off until afterwards, at best.
Yeah. Do you think 5 billion for an example, BMPS, is that enough as well? I mean, we look at, they've had 2 bailouts already, right? I mean, they've been through this in the past, and now they're raising an additional 5 billion. What's going to make this time so different?
Well, there is a way of doing it in which it'll be different, and that is you actually take the loans down in terms of their value, the write down to the level at which the 6 billion or 7 billion of non-performing loans in Monte Paschi can actually be sold on. But of course, if you write down the loan, you have to write down something else. And we come back to the old problem is it the bondholders who are the depositors, or do we have some wild cooked up scheme which, writes down the bondholders and then reimburses them from another government bureau or whatever? But you can address the issue probably by writing down the loans, taking them out of Monte Paschi, and then recapitalizing the bank. But as I say, that's only one bank. It's the whole system which is totally undercapitalized and stuffed with bad loans, and therefore won't lend, and therefore won't help the economy.
Who's going to refinance the recapitalization?
Oh, well, now that's a very interesting one, because you see, we created a wonderful new system in Europe called the Single Supervisory Mechanism and the Resolution Mechanism and all sorts of other lovely mechanisms, including things like the BRRD. And I mean, you've got so many acronyms going around the place that it confuses everybody. But anyway, the rules are set under the BRRD, which are simply what I've been describing, which is you have to write down all of these bad assets and write down the liabilities of the bank, which means the people who fund it, to the tune of 8% of the total balance sheet. And of course, once we've invented this lovely rule, we then spend the rest of our lives trying to never go near it, by going around the size, by having the state put in a little bit, by forcing other banks to put in a little bit, by getting your best friends on Wall Street to say it's a great deal and we can take it off your books provided we can flog it to somebody else. The fact of the matter is, we created the structures in Europe to deal with this, and we are now creating the means of going around the structures without ever making them work. So, it reflects on Europe as it usually does, which is you can make rules and then you spend the rest of your life just obeying them, like the Stability and Growth Pact, the Budget Deficit Pact, the Maastricht criteria. We can go on. Listen, it's like walking through a graveyard. The tombstones of the legislation that might have been actually the legislation that was, but which was never practiced.